All right. So, One Way Out podcast episode 60. I'm joined by Delirious Montanez. And why don't you introduce yourself? Because you're a very interesting person.
So I am Delirious Montañez. I go by DMB in El Paso. I am originally from Puerto Rico, but I have been living in El Paso, Texas for the last 26 years. And I have a background in the military as a joint multinational logistician. Um,
Okay.
I worked for the Border Patrol for 21 years, but before then, I was a police officer and I worked in a jail. I was a detention officer and I was a deputy sheriff.
Oh, quite a background there. Um, what are you doing these days?
So these days, I'm supposed to be retired, but I think that I work now more than whenever I actually had a full time job. I have a farm and I do equine therapy and horseback riding lessons, beginner and intermediate with the community. And we do birthday parties, budget friendly for our community. I have a nonprofit organization called Dance for Dreams, and we do scholarships for kids between 10 and 17 that are US citizens, live in El Paso County, and are involved in sport event competitions. And other than taking care of my parents that are in the 80s, 80, 81, and my dog, I'm running for office for the U.S. House of Representatives, Texas 16. I stay pretty busy.
what um what made you want to go that route? What made you want to get involved in that level of politics?
So I actually was thinking to run for office in 2019 before I retired from Border Patrol in November 2020. And the reason because I decided to go federal is because I spent my entire life working for the federal government. I spent 29 years in the Army Reserves. Um, I have like 3, 4 years of active duty. I was mobilized during 9/11, so I was on the war on terrorism or Operation Enduring Freedom. And then I worked 21 years for Border Patrol. So, I mean, my bread and butter is the federal government. 2022, I ran for city council because I needed to keep my name on the ballot and be able for the opposing party, the voters, to be able to see my name. The party stated, well, you don't have any experience in politics. So why don't you start being a precinct chair? And I said, well, I don't need to start being a precinct chair. I have a master's degree. I have a bachelor degree. I have all this experience that a lot of precinct chairs don't have. I am a member of the community for many years. I'm involved in a lot of organizations, civic organizations. So I think that, I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Um the so running yeah, and I'm assuming you're running on which I mean when you say the party, I mean which party are you talking about?
So in 2022, I run in the Democratic Party. And the reason because I run in the Democratic Party was because, well, one, people in the community that I respect a lot, they said, well, if you run in politics in El Paso, you have to run in the Democratic Party. If not, you're not going to win. My values have always been conservative. And from the beginning, I have always told the Democratic Party that I was a moderate conservative. Well, they stated that there are no conservatives in the Democratic Party. So in 2024, I wanted to run as an independent and I started getting the signatures and we had the signatures. The problem was the redistricting of the state lines. A lot of people, a lot of the constituents didn't even know who their representatives were, like city council, county commissioners. And then whenever I actually started validating the signatures, some of the signatures that we had were from District 23 instead of District 16. So I decided to run as a write-in. I knew that I was not going to have any chances, but I wanted to prove a point. I wanted to prove a point to the point that there's a lot of fraud on our election system in El Paso.
Yeah.
I actually filed a federal lawsuit. And then the judge, I just got it. I haven't read it because honestly, I have lost all the faith in our judicial system. is broken from the bottom up and the top to bottom. And, my parents moved with me from Puerto Rico, and they cannot believe how broken our judicial system is. Puerto Rico wants to become a state, and my parents have been here for 3 years, and they say, Puerto Rico better stay like they are. They don't need to become a state for nothing.
Yeah.
The benefits do not outweigh the, the
Drawbacks. Yeah.
yeah, the drawbacks. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. Um, so as a write-in, one of the issues that we encounter, there were like 13,000 votes that were undercounted. Who are those votes?
Yeah.
They didn't go to Ms. Escobar. They didn't go to the Republican candidate. At the time, it used to be Irene Armendariz. You remember her husband? We were with Ben Jackson.
Sure.
And, we spent thousands
Yeah.
on that campaign. And the county only counted I think it was like 177 votes. I say,
Yeah.
impossible, impossible. So I went to the county and I said, I want those ballots to be counted. And then the county said that I needed to get a judge order to be able to get them counted. So yeah, it's been ridiculous. So
Sure.
this time around, I said, you know what? I am going to follow my heart. I am a conservative. The Democratic Party kick me to the curb and they say that I don't belong to them. So I'm going to run as a conservative, as a moderate conservative in the Republican Party. And then a lot of people don't understand what a moderate conservative is. And in my mind, a moderate conservative is somebody, a candidate that has moderate conservative values, meaning I am not an extremist Republican.
Mhm.
I am in the middle. I work for the people. I don't work for the party. I don't work for one individual. In 2020, 2016, we worked for Border Patrol. I voted for Trump because our agency was going downhill. And then in 2020, I didn't vote for Trump because a lot of the things that happened to me were under his administration. And then came 2022, 22, 24,
Mhm.
I voted for Trump again because I needed him to get our agency fixed and our military clean up. And he's been doing a great job. Perfect, he's not. But at the same time, we have to take in consideration the directors and the people that are in charge of these federal agencies. They're corrupt, they're rogue, they only care about their personal agenda. And it's like a president of corporate America. If he or she do not know the problems, they cannot fix them. And
Sure.
that's what happening to the commander in chief right now.
Yeah.
So thank God he's opening his eyes and he's actually, being a little bit more active on this second time around. And, you know, things are moving in the right direction, slowly but surely.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of criticisms of the president right now. But
Mhm.
you can't deny the impact that he made on the border alone. I mean,
Yes, it's
compared
more
to what it was,
secure. Yes.
obviously, by every metric, right? By like every metric.
Yes. I mean, I
Uh,
remember, I mean, I remember the big groups that we were getting. Like sometimes we get like 1,000 illegal immigrants at in one pop. You're
yeah.
like, you're one agent.
Yeah.
By the time that you get back up, you're going to get a lot of getaways. You don't know how many criminals we were putting on the streets. So, like I say, President Trump is not perfect, but no president is. But I can tell you, America is more secure under his command. We just need him to have a little bit more oversight and more involvement on these directors at these federal agencies and get
Mm,
rid of this corruption.
sure. Yeah. So well, I mean, that's a pretty big task, right? Because like that fight that he's fighting, that's like all throughout every agency. So like I don't know how
Yes.
you purge an entire agency without like just cutting everyone and then starting over. I don't know how you go
Yeah, you're
through.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, remember those surveys that they used to give us whenever we used to work for Department of Homeland Security? I
Yeah.
actually did a FOIA. I did a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act. requesting the results. They couldn't find them. I just wonder, they spend
Yeah.
all these thousands of dollars on a survey and they can't even find my results whenever you have to put a name
Yeah.
and it's attached to an agent. And as a matter of fact, it was whenever I retired. So if you look at all the people that retired the same day that I did, I'm pretty sure that there were not that many. But yeah,
Yeah.
they couldn't find the response from the agency came no responsive. They
Yeah.
couldn't find them.
And what happens if they're non-responsive? Is there any kind of FOIA
You can go
repercussions?
to federal court. So let me
Yeah.
tell you. So let me tell you how the court works. So this is the reason. That's another reason because I said that the judicial system is totally broken. Because one, you have to spend $402 to file a claim, a case in federal court, right? And then the judge goes through all these months and years without making a decision, and then come out to say, I don't have jurisdiction, but then they write a 23-page opinion, which, hello, you don't have jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And then if you go to an appeal, you have to spend like 300 and something more dollars at the appeal process, which whenever it goes to the appeal, it doesn't go anywhere. And then the last step that you have is to go to the Supreme Court. Oh, by the way, the Supreme Court only take 1% of the cases that are submitted to them, and then you have to pay $300. And I mean, the process is just
Yeah.
tedious, exhausting.
I think that's
I,
by design, right? To just
I think
discourage.
it's by design, yes. So people actually give up. They do not file in court. I think that, I mean, I don't know where our tax money go. Uh,
Yeah. I
because we have to pay
completely.
extra for the streets, we have to pay extra for the utilities, more for schools and taxes. So I don't know what they do with our money.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, D, your stance on things, I happen to agree with you 100% on pretty much all
Thank
that stuff.
you.
But I got to tell you that the way the system works, I can see how the people that are there are not going to agree with you
Oh,
on
I know.
any of that. So I can see you've got quite a few hurdles you're going to have to jump. Um,
Yes. But you know what?
yeah,
God gave me this purpose and I fully trust in Him. I
yeah,
know that He's going to put me where He wants me, when He wants me. Right now, there's a lot of things that have been getting exposed that I did what I had to do. Let's put it that way.
sure. Yeah. I I wish more people did what they had to do. And then had, because it seems like you have principles. You know what I mean? Like you have
Yes.
like a foundation. Like what would you say? Because you're running as a conservative, so I'm assuming Republican Party. What would you say are the principles of the Republican Party of your area? Would you say
So, we believe in freedom,
sure?
liberty. Our faith is so strong. We have the armor of God around us,
Mhm.
and we want limited government. I don't need the government to tell me what to put in my mouth. You know, like the government should be wasting their time on things that are national security and are important as a whole,
Sure.
but not every single minute thing that can be taken care of by another level of our government, like our state or our local government. And sometimes it goes back to the household.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I would say that's like where everything starts, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
But whenever parents have to work two and three jobs to be able to put food on their table, what do you think that the kids are going to do? Watch television,
Yeah.
watch action movies. I see kids 6 years old playing PlayStation all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
I
Um,
remember whenever I was young, I mean, we used to play on the streets with our friends,
yeah. Yeah, that's
you
largely
know.
gone away. That's gone away a lot.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So individual freedoms, faith,
Limited government.
limited government. Um,
And their platform is humongous,
sure.
right? And this is something that people don't understand. What the GOP, the national GOP guidance and bylaws state is that you have to agree, I believe it's 12 of their platform issues. You don't have to agree with everything. And there's a lot of denial, like sometimes people in the Republican Party wants you to be like an extremist Republican and agree with everything before they accept you inside their political organization. And that's not what the bylaws says.
Yeah. That's how the party operates though, right? Like
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so can you, what's in it? What are some examples of the 12? Can you think of any like off the top of your head?
Not top of my head. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, we believe in pro-life. We
Sure.
don't believe in abortion.
Okay.
I mean, as a moderate conservative, like I have friends that, they have been raped,
Hmm.
but we have to educate our community. You know, I remember there was a chaplain that worked with us. He was very young in the Border Patrol, and he will adopt children from another country. What about adopting children from our own country? We don't have to sacrifice somebody's life just because the mother do that cannot have children. They, I don't agree on, let's say for example, Texas. They have very strong rules on zero abortion, right? But then the individual goes to another state and then they get an abortion. And then, by the way, it's paid by the government, or by the way, it's paid by the constituents, by the voters.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
Sure. Yeah. Well.
Whenever I was young, I went to elementary Baptist school and
Mhm.
then I went to Catholic high school. So, I have been pro life my entire life. Sometimes it's because of our parents, that we make, wrong decisions. And we need to stop that. We need to stop that train. A lot of El Pasoans are Democrats because one, conservatives or Republicans don't knock at their houses. Two, they do not talk about their platform. They don't talk about their principles and their values. And three, is generational.
Yeah.
If your grandparents were Democrats, your parents were Democrats, the kids were Democrats, the grandkids are Democrats, and it's generational.
Yeah.
We need to step away from red and blue and look at our community and our community's needs. We're not San Antonio, we're not Houston, we're not Austin, we're not California. Our values as El Pasoans are totally different. There's a lot of Christians and Catholics and Hispanics in our community. And that's the message that we have to get out there.
Yeah, I would try to I mean, they should be focusing on the things that they share with everyone in their community, versus any of the dividing stuff. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, what is the core principles that they would share with everybody? And you're right, everyone in El Paso largely is Catholic or some sort of Christian. So that would, obviously resonate with the conservative side. What about like I mean, I guess people do care about social issues, but like um what would be the conservatives' point of view on you know let's say the border, for example? I mean, are they direct?
Well, I mean, conservatives and Republicans, they want a
Mhm.
secure border. They're
Sure.
pro Trump,
Mhm.
pro MAGA, make
Yeah.
America great again,
Mhm.
because the border is more secure.
Mhm.
They are pro law enforcement, which I am too. I mean, I served 26 years as a law enforcement officer at city, county, and federal level. But at the same time, just as you know, We have good agents and we have bad agents. And if those agents or officers do not want to rehabilitate themselves or follow the laws and follow the regulation and directives and policies and procedures, they need to find another employment. Because I'm telling you, there's not an officer or an agent that hates and distastes a bad apple more than them
Yeah.
because they make our jobs harder.
Sure. Yeah. What would you say like the public sentiment is though? Like the general sentiment in El Paso, do most people want like a secure border? Do they just want there to be no border? Like how would you feel think
I
people
think
feel?
that honestly, I feel like people in El Paso, because they have so many families across the border, they would like no border, meaning no wall,
Yeah.
sort of like before,
Sure.
that
Yeah.
people will go to the middle of the river and they play around. And you know what? Times have changed. Criminality have skyrocketed.
Yeah. Economics, all of it's changed. Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, whenever you have immigrants, and I am not just saying Mexicans, I mean, they can be Salvadorians, Venezuelans, it doesn't matter. I mean, we have it here in the United States too.
Hmm.
Whenever you have individuals that decide to commit a crime against another human being, we cannot have open borders.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, those 80s, 85, 90s, they don't exist anymore.
sure. So sell that to, I'm an El Pasoan. Hey, like my tia and my tío are on the other side in Juarez, and I think they should be able to come across whenever they want. Like why not? Why not?
So, as a former Border Patrol agent,
Sure.
Border Patrol, CBP, DHS, they have visas. They can get a visitor's visa. They can come and visit you. They have to be vetted, make sure that they don't have any criminal record across in Mexico or another criminal record here in the United States, meaning running and vet the background.
Hmm.
Um,
But that costs
if
too
they
much.
want, huh?
That costs too much. I'm just saying what people will say,
Oh, it does. It
Yeah.
does. I mean,
Yeah.
these attorneys are making a
Sure.
fortune out
Yeah.
of our, and let me get this, let me say this. Not every single immigrant that comes to the United States is a criminal.
Sure.
It's not. There's a lot of people, like I have a horse business,
Hmm.
right? And I race on the racetrack. And there's a lot of people from Mexico that are here with a work employment, a work permit, right? They're not criminals. They may smoke their pot once in a while, but you know what? They live in New Mexico. And in New Mexico, it's legal.
Sure. Yeah.
They're not doing anything wrong. They're making a living like anybody else. But, they spend their entire salary on attorney's fees.
Yeah.
The process takes forever,
Yeah.
to become a legal resident. And then to become a citizen, you had to spend 5 more years. I mean, you're talking about thousands of dollars on applications.
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of like a barrier to entry, I guess, but
It
maybe
is.
it should be made easier, you think? Yeah.
I believe in immigration reform.
Okay.
I know that our congresswoman was working on a bipartisan effort with a representative from Florida. I
Mhm.
think that bill needs to be revised to the teeth. It needs to be scrutinized. I don't believe that we need to give legal residence to individuals that have been here for 10 years. You have to vet individuals. You have to run a background check. Criminal records from another country takes forever. And most of the times they're non-existent.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people don't get picked up until they run a red light, they don't wear their seatbelt, so our local law enforcement are the first initial, encounter with those individuals.
Sure. Which is some of the issue they've been having with some of the cities, right? The blue cities specifically, which El Paso I would say is a blue city, but like it's in Texas. Is ICE and those guys, they used to go in, Border Patrol used to go in, all this, but had board cap. They would go into the jails and they would, do their sweeps that way. Well, when a lot of the sanctuary cities started, I mean, now they're no longer honoring the ICE detainers, the what do you call them, the 247s, the forms that you would put on an alien that he commits a state crime, and then immigration will put a detainer on that guy. So when he gets out, they turn him over to immigration. Well, a lot of the blue cities aren't doing that anymore. They're not honoring.
No.
Yeah. So then you get what we're seeing now, which is like agents in Minneapolis or Chicago or LA, because they have to go to the streets because they can't go into the jails to get criminal aliens anymore. Um, and I don't know what's specifically going on in El Paso, if they're honoring detainers or not. I don't know if you know. Um,
No, I mean, I retired November 2020.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if they're still doing the 247s, but I know the city opposed to a new detention center that they were trying to do within
sure,
city limits. But you know what? If that's federal money on
yeah,
federal land, they can stop it. The
sure,
only thing that I will say is that the federal government, when I get elected, if the government gets to do that second detention facility, I will conduct oversight on the agency. I mean, you remember Ronnie Scott? I mean, he used to be,
yeah. I do. I remember Rodney. Yeah,
he left. Yeah, he left and then he came back as a commissioner.
sure,
Um, that's the time of the provost. Remember Carla Provost that was pushed out,
sure.
and there were a couple of others. They should have been fired. That's what should have happened. But they kept all their, like Gloria Chavez. Remember, all those people were in the same academy. But
Yeah,
then you have Republicans that, because they're pro law enforcement, they accept wrongdoing. No, no, they didn't follow the law. They violated the policies and procedures and the regulations. They should have been investigated and they should have been fired. That's what would have happened to you or what
sure,
happened to me or
sure,
any other agent.
sure.
So why are there, you know, taking care of management and leaders?
Politics.
Well, you know, like I say, I answer to God, I answer to the people.
Yeah,
I believe in bipartisan efforts because you need to compromise. And it's not compromise to hurt your party. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that you need to have a dialogue. You need to be diplomatic enough to be able to get to an agreement, to be able to get things done.
yeah,
If not, it will happen in Congress what's been happening for years.
yeah. So you see the corruption on this level, and then wanting to go into that, feeling like you can make a difference, like, do you feel like that is possible?
Well, let me tell you this. Whenever I work for Border Patrol, as
Mhm.
you know, you're always being investigated for something.
Tell me
It
about it.
didn't matter. Yeah, it didn't matter for what it was.
Mhm.
As a congressional elected official, I get booted out by my constituents, meaning if I do my job, one, I don't have to spend the next 2 years doing campaign. I
Yeah,
can actually spend my 2 years doing what I was elected to do, right?
sure.
But whenever you are working for a federal agency, you know, you're at the mercy of corrupt and rogue management officials. You really are.
But even in the election process, right? Like you said, there was 13,000 votes they didn't count. Like
Yes,
how reliable is that? Like how reliable, you
I
know?
agree with you. I agree
Mhm.
with you. I am actually considering doing an injunction request. I do a motion for an injunction. So whenever the elections, the primary pass, doesn't matter if I win, doesn't matter if I'm not getting elected by the people. I
Mhm.
want to know where every single vote goes.
Sure.
Because this is the problem. This is the problem with the electoral process that we have. Elections are federal, but then they get delegated to the state. The state delegated to the county. But guess who actually is in charge of the elections in El Paso? The political organizations.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
There's two candidates in the Republican Party that their names should not be anywhere on the ballot. I brought it up to Lisa Weiss, which is the administrator for the elections office in the county. I brought it up to the GOP. I brought it up to the state elections department, and they haven't fixed it. Violating the election code is a state violation.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have any hope that anyone would see justice over that? Like maybe be prosecuted for it or
Well, I tell you this, the GOP told those candidates
Mhm.
that they might face a case in court. Because the problem is that even if they do not win in the primaries, they are taking a lot of votes that could have prevented a runoff. You see, sometimes more is not better. Sometimes you have to look at people's education, training, experience, background to be able to elect good candidates.
Sure.
Candidates that have like I don't have to go to Congress and get trained by a staff, meaning I can start working from day one. And I know that you follow me on social media, and there are a lot of things that I do on social media that's not my job. I don't get paid to do that.
Yeah.
I elected a congresswoman to get that done, but she doesn't do it. So somebody has to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I say I feel like I haven't retired because I spend more time doing somebody else's job than actually enjoying retirement. I mean, I
Sure.
should be like taking cruises every week.
Yeah, for real. That's
I
why
mean, we
I thought
make
it was
good
interesting.
money.
Yeah. That's why I thought it was interesting when I saw you doing all that stuff because I'm like, I knew you had retired at some point. I didn't know exactly when. But that you are choosing to work this route shows that you actually do care.
I do
I mean,
care.
yeah, you do care. And that's not something that I think is super common amongst the politicians that I've interacted with personally or observed from afar. Like it's a business or a job or a, like a like they don't really believe anything. A lot of them, they believe what they
Well,
need
the
to do to
majority
stay
of
elected.
them, they have a personal agenda,
Sure.
like I am retired. I am
Mhm.
retired from the military. I am retired from Border Patrol.
Sure.
I mean, I have invested. I mean, if you look at my federal ethics committee report, I have invested a lot in our community.
Mhm.
Why? Because it matters to me.
Sure.
I don't have any children. I have
Mhm.
nephews and
Mhm.
nieces, and I would like to believe that that God put me on this planet to live it better than how I found it. I see our youth generation. I don't even remember protesting whenever I was in school, whenever I was in college.
Yeah. That's what they do for
And
fun now.
even though, yeah,
Yeah.
and even though it's protected by the First Amendment, the kids supposed to be in school learning from academics.
Yeah. They don't know
They
enough to
shouldn't.
be out there caring that much. They don't know. They haven't had the experience, like whatever
But
if they feel that passionately about it, it's not their idea. Somebody put that idea in their head, right? They didn't
well,
come
they
to that
get
conclusion.
indoctrinated. They get
Sure.
indoctrinated.
Yeah.
It's kind of like like Turning Point, right?
Yeah.
Like I
Mhm.
didn't know Charlie Kirk. I didn't follow him. I started watching his videos after, sadly, the tragedy he passed away.
Sure.
But I think that was an internal incident. I think that he was the president of Turning Point. I think that he knew too much, and he have requested an audit of the funds that were given to the organization, and somebody didn't want him to find out.
Do
Plain
you
and
ever
simple.
well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Some of the stuff you're telling me now, your views and how you think, if you ever did get to a position, like in Congress or anywhere up there, I
Mhm.
mean, they would try to destroy you, I would assume,
Oh yeah, they will.
Yeah,
Just like the military did, and just like
sure,
the Border Patrol did, and look at
sure,
everything that have been exposed in those two agencies.
sure, yeah,
So that's why I say, God put me on this path for a reason. I was under the FBI, protection, how you call it, witness protection one time. That
sure.
was like in 2000, I can remember, 2000 and like early 2000s.
Mhm.
Um, but, it is what it is. we choose where we walk. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I die today or if I die tomorrow, I know that I have served my purpose.
Yeah. Because you believe it. Like this is what I'm saying. Like you find out what people really believe when it costs them something. Like it's easy to take a stance on something that, like, if I said, "Hey, I'm against slavery," yeah, that's easy to take a stance in 2026. But if it was 1864 and I'm like, I'm against slavery, then that I actually believe it because I'm gonna get hung from a tree or something. Like,
You have no idea how many you have no idea how many conservatives and Republicans have reached out to me, and they're so scared of publicly saying that they're conservatives.
yeah, yeah, especially in El Paso, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I
Well,
didn't sacrifice 29 years serving my country for our freedom.
yeah,
I think that word freedom, you know, like some people take it for granted. They really do.
sure. Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Like I look at some of the other candidates and I'm like, I mean, you have no idea what's fighting for our nation.
Sure. Well,
People think that they can just run for office, just because the requirements to run for elected office, especially for Congress, I mean, they're very little.
mm,
They're very little.
yeah. Well, I see so many people that do it. Like, for example, AOC. You're familiar with Alexandria Ocasio Cortez?
Yes,
You
very
know, she
liberal.
she very liberal. She ran. She was just a bartender or whatever she was. In college, and had this very left wing view, anti capitalist, pro socialism kind of deal. And the second she got in, I mean, like, she was kind of making waves at first, and then now she's just right in line. Like, whatever they did to her or whatever happened to her, like, I don't see people holding on to their principles very long once they get elected. There's very
Well,
few.
because they
Yeah,
want to be like long time
sure. Career
elected
politicians.
officials.
Yeah,
You
career
see, I'm
politicians. Yeah,
not. I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah,
I want to do at least 2 terms, and that's up to the people.
sure.
But I believe in training, train the trainer. I believe in mentoring somebody that have the same values that you do,
Mhm.
that are going to be good for our community.
Sure.
But I don't decide that. The community decide that. What I am in opposition is about these elected officials that get in office and all they do is campaigning for the entire 2 years that they get elected.
Yeah,
If you do your job, you shouldn't worry about getting reelected because people will come out in masses to
yeah.
vote for you.
Yeah, we have examples of that. Like, there's I don't know if you're familiar with Ron Paul, who is a
Yes.
very, very popular Republican. He didn't do any of that. He didn't lobby. He didn't do any of that stuff. And they knew after a while to stop going to his office because he just was like, I'm not interested. And he's still able to he kept getting elected because he was a principled person. But I think most people feel like, either they don't have principles, or they're just willing to do whatever they need to do to make, like you said, maintain the job, and that becomes their principle. So
Mhm.
they're just gonna sell out to whoever funds their campaign. So
Yes.
what can you say about that? Where someone's all right, so I'm what's that taco? I'm Chico's Tacos. I come to you and I'm like, okay, dealers, here's $1 million for your campaign. You run it however you want. I just want you to, whatever, say that Chico's Tacos is the, like, it gets all the government contracts or whatever. Like,
I won't do it.
yeah,
Well,
right. Like,
to begin with, the most that somebody can give a candidate per
mhm,
election cycle, meaning on the primaries, if there's a runoff, and if there's a general election, is actually $3,500.
okay.
They cannot give you more than that. And then,
How are they making all their money then? How are they getting all this money? Like these politicians,
oh, because of contracts.
Sure.
Contracts. Let's say I give you an example. I'm not going to mention names of companies, but I'm going to say Jane Doe
Okay.
gives $3,500 to. That's the reason because I run a grassroots campaign.
Mhm.
I don't go to big donors to ask for $3,500. There's some candidates that went to people requesting the application fee, which was $3,125. And the problem is, whenever you do that, these people expect you to give them something in return. So
Nothing's free.
now nothing is free. And then
Mhm.
instead of you working for the people that elected you into office, you're actually spinning your wheels, working for these people because they want you to give them contracts whenever you get federal funding to El Paso. And that's exactly what's happening with
Yeah,
our congresswomen.
sure. Yeah. I think that's pretty common knowledge too. So it's like how I don't know what you do about that. Cuz you're going to be competing against that. So,
Well, I am not going to sell my soul. I mean, you
sure.
know me for many years in the Border Patrol, and you
Sure.
know that I always did the right thing. I wasn't the most popular by no means, but I can tell you this: I was never in trouble in the court,
Mhm.
because I didn't treat it illegal immigrants without dignity and respect because I treated everybody the same.
Sure.
So I never changed then, and I am not planning to change now. Not for one person and not for a political organization.
Yeah.
You know,
I really think a lot of the problems that are in our culture, are down like they say politics are downstream from culture, but I also think culture is also downstream from politics, where you have these people that are just selling themselves to whatever companies, whoever whatever organization for this money, and then just a lack of moral character, so whenever I see somebody who is running for an office that has some kind of morals, even if I don't agree with them, I know what they think and I know where they stand, and they're not I know what lines they won't cross, like, agree with them or not, I know what their lines are. And I think that's like the most important thing for me as like a person, a civilian, member of society. When I look at a politician, I'm like, I want to know what you believe, why you believe it, and will you compromise that for anything?
mhm.
So what would you say is your like foundational, like, I get your religion, um, but when it comes to politics, um, how do you think about like serving, the people around you, the your constituents? Like, do you you view yourself as a public servant, like, as a
I
politician?
have spent my
Mm.
entire life
Sure.
serving the people.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I never thought that I was going to run for office. As a matter of fact, two of my uncles were heavily involved in politics in Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
And the problem with politics is that you lose friendships because they might not agree with you or they belong to a different political organization.
Mhm.
You have issues with your family because politics and religion are so
Inflammatory?
they're hard subjects for people to
Sure.
talk and agree on, right?
Yeah, of course.
And sometimes I tell people, we have to agree to disagree,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like I believe in surveys, I believe in polls, like whenever I get in office, I believe in neighborhood organizations. I believe on, LULAC. I believe in the League of Women Veteran Voters.
Mhm.
I believe in all these organizations that are doing good for our community, and maybe a constituent do not want to be part of a political organization, but maybe they can be part of a civic organization so they can get the information that they need, for us to be able to vote on issues as our people
Sure.
want.
Well, I feel like maybe you had mentioned that, like, most people don't even know who their representatives are, like, because, like, I think most the general sentiment is that, like, they don't represent me anyway, like,
But
there's
they
nothing.
do.
But they
Like,
I know they.
there's a figure, there's a very important figure in El Paso, that they only expose or not expose, but they only give a platform to local candidates. And it's like I tell them, everything starts from the top.
Mhm.
The local government doesn't have any money unless the states sends it down or the federal government make an allotment. It
Yeah,
doesn't happen.
sure. That's true. Yeah, I
And
don't know.
people don't have to be partisan.
Sure.
They can talk like, like in a debate. You can invite the congresswomen,
Mhm.
but what I disagree on is having her send a video. No, 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 no. If we're having a debate, you need to be present
Yeah,
because the constituents need to look at your face and they need to ask you questions directly.
yeah,
And everything, sometimes it's not what you say. It's just your mannerism,
yeah,
it's your posture, is, where as a law enforcement officer, you know that, where your eyes are looking at, where your hands are, everything matters and everything counts.
sure.
On a
And it,
video,
yeah, it's
on
not
a
this
recorded video, you cannot get that.
scripted. I mean, no pressure.
Edited.
Yeah,
Yep.
edited. Yeah. You don't see who someone is. I always say that you have to talk to them for about 90 minutes. And then you like because people can fake it for maybe like the really good ones, your Gavin Newsom type people can fake it maybe for like 45 minutes, an hour. But after that, like the mask always slips and then they say something that like contradicts something they just said, or you catch them in lies, or they're just they just say a bunch of nonsense or whatever. Like you can see who someone is. This is why I think that the 2024 election was so crazy because politicians realized the media, like the mainstream type CNN stuff, that's all kind of going away. Young people don't watch that anymore. It's all
Nope.
podcasts now. So
And
you know,
social media,
social media. So
YouTube,
YouTube,
TikTok.
sure. But you get to see somebody who they are. This is why like I believe you're a genuine. I know you are genuine, but like even if I didn't know you, just the fact you'd be coming here to talk and who you don't know what I'm going to ask you. I didn't hand you any questions. I'll ask you whatever. But you're willing to just because you're going to give your honest answer. And like
Mhm.
you can't, those people, as politicians can't go into the environment where they're going to have to tell you what they really think because they don't really think anything, or they don't
They're
really
told what to say.
hold what to say. So they're not real people.
I
Um,
call them puppets. That's why I call a puppet candidate or a puppet elected official.
because they
You
are.
know,
Yeah.
they're the mouth of somebody else's.
So what would you say? Let's get a little bit off topic here. Go bring you into my world. Um, what would you say are the real power structures of the American empire, whatever you want, country you want to call it? Like, where does the real power lie? Because if you have politicians that I believe you're correct, that a lot of them are just speaking for other organizations or people who pay them. Like, so where's the power actually lie? Then you think?
I don't think that the power lies on the genuine and
Mhm.
the honest elected officials because I would like to believe that everybody goes in with the right intentions, right? But at the same time, we know that there's good and there's evil,
Sure.
just as
Yeah.
simple as that. Um, I give you the primary example, the caravans at the border.
Okay.
Do
This is
you
under
think
Biden.
that, yeah,
Mhm.
do you think that 20,000 people just chat on the phone and say, hey, let's go to the United States tomorrow?
As a matter of fact, I know they didn't. Yeah, I know. I know it was not their own choice exactly. Well, I mean, it was their choice, but they were very well funded. Yeah.
Yes, very well funded, and that's the reason because I believe, I mean, real ID, I mean, I remember there is a ballot center here in El Paso that
Mhm.
there were people on Facebook, on social media, constituents that they were saying, and I actually took a snapshot of those conversations, and where they're saying that they were not checking the ID from the voters. And that happens.
Sure. I think California, you're not allowed to show your ID. Like they don't want you to show your ID. Like they've made some kind of ordinance.
But how do you validate that you are who you say you are?
Do you think people are lying? You think people would lie to you?
Oh yeah, people would lie.
Yeah, I
People
think
lie
so
all
too.
the time.
I think so too. Yeah, that's I think there that voting should be one day, make it a federal holiday, right? Vote in person, like there's no excuse.
Like in Puerto Rico, it's very hard to engage in election fraud because they have one day of voting. They do not have early voting, and they have the mail-in voting for the people that truly needs it.
Yeah, like
You know,
deployed or something. Yeah.
yes, deploy. People that are in bed rest. Obviously that they have their mind still. Their reasoning, or people that that are that cannot get transportation, but nowadays you get people, anybody to get a mail-in vote, a mail-in
Sure.
voter.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't think that was ever intended, when this country was set up.
No, I don't think that
Yeah.
our founding fathers
Yeah.
thought that our country will become so evil.
That's how you get 13,000 votes that just either appear or don't get counted, or all this kind of shenanigans that we see, in all these elections. So that's what I'm saying. If you don't clean up the elections, I think a lot of people they don't trust them to begin with,
And
There's at
that's the
least
reason because people don't vote. People,
sure,
people, people just don't trust the system anymore.
sure.
I have had constituents that say, I mean, I'm pretty sure that this individual won the election, but guess who's going to win it?
Yeah,
That's the reason because going as a writing candidate is almost impossible. Even going as an independent is almost impossible. Libertarians vote in the Republican ballot because there's not a libertarian
yeah,
party.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have a party, but it's not on the ballot. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah, they don't have ballot access. I was a libertarian for a long time. I was a precinctman here where I'm at, and I would go to the meetings, and in 2022, I voted in the state, all that stuff, all that stuff. I was very
The
active in the
convention.
state
Hmm.
convention. It was really cool that Trump came to the national one in 2024. That's pretty cool. Um, uh, but yeah, you're right. It's the hurdles you have to jump over because the established parties, the R's and the D's. Uh, I mean, I don't see if you're not a member of, or quote unquote a member of those parties. I don't see how you get in any office as an independent. I mean, I guess it happens rarely, but a third party, I doubt it. Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Well,
Um,
and one of the things about the Republican, like in 2022, whenever I decided to, I mean, when was it? 2022 was the first time that I ran. I went to the Republican Party because, I have always been a conservative,
sure.
a moderate conservative. And, the party was non-existent back then.
Yeah.
Now that the leadership have changed, we have become better. My question is it enough? Is it enough to change the minds or hearts of our community, the constituents that actually vote on the primaries? Because that's another thing. It's a non-presidential election.
Mhm.
So the majority of the people don't vote
Yeah.
just the way it is.
Yeah.
And then I was actually talking with a constituent that called me yesterday, and she's an older lady. She goes to the voting center, and she's very Republican, very Republican, and she always asks for the Republican ballot. And then you have individuals that tell her that that doesn't exist anymore. That you just get one ballot. Whenever I voted in 2022, the Democratic Party actually stamped my voter ID or my voter card
Mhm.
with Democratic. Well, I mean, what if I want to vote something different in the non-presidential election? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
they stamp you, like they label you.
Yeah.
I went to visit another constituent yesterday, a good friend of mine. And I asked him, because I mean, we have that report, and I asked him. I said, are you Republican or are you Democrat? And he had voted on both different years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that vote because of the candidate,
Yeah.
because of their values,
Sure.
of their experience and what they bring to the table, not because they're red or they're blue.
Yeah.
Whenever DeMargo was an elected official, he changed that. We don't have straight ticket anymore.
Mm.
And that's how it should be. That's
Sure.
what democracy is based on. You should be able to vote for the individual that you want to vote for. I remember in 2024, whenever I was running as a writing candidate, I mean, I will see voters with with their example ballot marked, and they were marked by their party. I'm like, the job of a precinct chair is not to tell your constituents who to vote for. Your job is to educate them on the available candidates for the available races.
Sure.
Give them the information for them to educate themselves. But another problem is that a lot of individuals don't take the time to educate themselves on the candidates.
Sure. Yeah. That's something I think is a problem with voting in general, is because a lot of people are uninterested in politics, but they still vote. And then it's like, man, a vote is exercising force on everyone around you. You know what I mean? Like you're exerting your will, your political will on other
Is that
people.
right?
It's
Whenever
your
people don't
yeah,
vote, they're giving the power to somebody else to be their
sure.
voice.
And if you use that power in irresponsibly, which is like don't research anything, don't even read about the candidates you're voting for. You're just voting because of the party or whatever. Like you're doing yourself a huge disservice.
True.
Um, yeah, a lot of people died for those rights and fought for those rights, and
Oh, they have
people,
given their life for
sure,
those rights.
people treat them just like whatever. I'm just gonna vote, R down the ticket or D down the ticket, or I'm
It
not gonna
shouldn't be
vote.
that way.
Sure. I get it, but it's just it doesn't seem like that's a healthy system. That's all.
Well,
All right.
I have spent 30 minutes like today, a gentleman, like I made little notes for me to remember.
Mhm,
He's 73 years old, former army,
mhm.
and very Christian, very his faith. We spent 35 minutes talking on the phone. And there are some candidates that they don't even spend 2 minutes talking to you because they want to go to the next person.
Sure. Yeah.
I
I mean, I
believe
get
in
it.
I do
A lot of
too, but
numbers.
I believe
Yeah.
in quality. I believe in
Sure.
quality
Yeah.
because I think that if you spend time with people, it's about, it's like a business, right?
Mhm.
If the people like a restaurant, there's restaurants that they don't spend any money on marketing.
Yeah, they're just good.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
And, it's people's mouth. They talk about the restaurant. Like there is a lady that's on social media all the time. I can't remember her first name, but she goes by Todo El Paso. I love looking at her sites because sometimes she goes to restaurants and she gives a review of the restaurant. She talks about what she likes, she doesn't like, but she always talks about politics. But it has been very negative to her by the political parties because they think that she's the mouthpiece of their party, and she's just trying to educate the community.
Sure. Yeah.
So many personal attacks is, politics are very dirty. They really
There you
are.
go. That's why I was
But
surprised when you were like, "I'm going in." I'm like, "Oh man,
I
they're gonna
had
come at you
to.
hard. They're gonna come at you
You
hard."
know, in 2022, what prompted me to run in 2022, I you see, I didn't know about this incident because I was going through my fights with the agency back then. But in 2020, there was a soldier that was murdered. But I didn't find out anything until like January 2021.
Is this Vanessa at
No, Vanessa
home?
Guillen was
Oh,
another incident in
oh,
2020. A couple of weeks
oh,
later was this kid. And, Borstar, BORTAC, CBP, all those agencies, FBI, ATF, I mean, there were like 15 agencies involved in that incident. And what bothered me the most was uh, the lack of empathy, not even sympathy, empathy
yeah,
towards our service members or about an individual.
yeah.
Like nobody cared. I'm like, I mean, where's our humanity?
Hmm.
So in 2022, I decided to run because I say no. I used to be an honor guard member for Border Patrol. I
Mhm.
used to be a casualty assistance officer in the Army, and we do not leave people behind. We don't. And then I was getting attacked because I was using it as a political stunt. And I'm like, no, no. I run because, I mean, that's what prompted me to run. But here I am, 2026, and I'm still running.
Yeah,
I'm running because I'm a public servant. It's kind of army, right? Like we're, we're soldiers for life. And that's just who I am. But at the same time, that was my product from my family. You see, those were the values that were instilled in my brain since I was little. And I think that the problem that we have nowadays is parenthood. I think that parents are not spending enough time with their kids to be
sure.
able to educate them how they're supposed to educate them.
Yeah,
I see a lot of mothers, fathers raising their children on their own. So where's the other parent figure?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a part of the cultural degradation that I think is happening, and then it's had disastrous effects, and it's continuing to go that way. I mean, birth rates are through the floor. Uh, not infidelity, divorce rates are, skyrocketing. Like everyone I know is divorced. It's just
Well,
it's tough.
it costs less to get divorced than to get married, if you really look at it.
Sure. Yeah, there's an argument to be made there. But then people are just also the society has been kind of conditioned to be like a very selfish society where, like you said, we don't care.
There's no commitment.
No commitment.
People
Yeah.
don't commit. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't
People
believe
don't
in.
commit to each other anymore.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's right. But that's all just part of the same problem. Like, you know, um, the culture has just become this like very instant gratification, like lazy, I guess you can say.
They want everything now.
Want everything now. Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
Um,
Trump started doing those. I think it's $1,000 account for any child that is born. I think it's 20 over after 25, 2025,
yeah,
and then they put it on the child's education like a fund,
yeah,
and they cannot get it until they're 18 years old or something like that. But I think that that's an incentive for
sure.
people to have children,
Yep,
and prevent, you know, individuals having an abortion.
sure.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to go from point A to point B,
Yeah.
you know.
I just don't see a lot of will to do it. That's all. I mean, Trump did do the parental leave too. Like he gave
Hmm.
like federal employees a big chunk, like 3 months or something. It's something crazy, like time off. That they can use within the first year their child's born, which is the most important time. Um, so they can be more with their family. Um, Yeah, there's a lot there that we could go down that rabbit hole, but,
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you, since you're running as a conservative and you're going in this direction, how you
In the
feel.
fight,
Yeah, the fight. Well, there's a lot of fights, so that's why I wanted
light
to ask you.
versus darkness.
I think that is the appropriate way to look at it because there's a lot of darkness going on these days. So how do you feel, or what is your position uh, on the the situation that's going on in the cities as far as how they're handling the immigration? I don't know what you call mass deportations or operations that they're doing in the cities. How do you feel about that?
You mean the Democratic cities, or you mean in El Paso?
I mean, well. Are they doing it in El Paso? I don't know. Like, I'm sure ICE is
Well,
doing
I remember back then, like whenever we were working in El Paso sector, there were flights going out,
it.
from the DAG,
Mhm,
in Fort Bliss. And the reason because I know is because I was in charge of the DAG back then, during
mhm,
9/11. And I have a lot of co-workers or subordinates, working as contractors then.
mhm.
And then they were having a lot of flights, going out of the El Paso International Airport. Um, this is my stance on immigration.
Okay.
If you cross the border illegally, meaning you do not present yourself to an official from an immigration official at the port of entry, you violated the law. You cannot just go through a fence and say, "Here I am. Give me hotel, give me tennis shoes, give me a credit card for $5,000." And no, because whenever I go on the streets and I see homeless, especially veterans, and I get it, some of them don't want to be in the system. Why? Because the system failed them. They don't want to be no part of it. So
Yeah.
they'd rather be on the streets, you know. But the Democrats in El Paso, they just want to welcome everybody. No, I understand about being, there was one time that I was ready. I was ready to go to Canada because I was afraid of our own government. That's credible fear.
Sure.
And that would have given me asylum back then, you know. But people have to go through the process. The problem is that the process is so tedious, it's so long, it's so expensive that people say, you know what? I'm just going to take my chances and cross.
Yeah. Yeah. What they're doing in the cities, then, do you support it? Like the raids, the
I
everything we're
don't
seeing.
support, you know, our policy at DHS is that every time that you have your firearm, you have to have your credentials,
Sure,
right? Remember that one?
sure. I'm
I do
aware.
not. I know it looks cool to have a have a mask and board tag type and board star type,
Yeah,
but you know what? You need to identify yourself because
yeah.
there's a lot of people passing themselves as agents that they are not agents.
So you mean beyond the uniform, they should wear like name tags and stuff.
Yes, they should have their name
Mhm.
tag, or if they don't want to wear their name tags, like remember we used to have echo numbers. Like you
Sure.
have a number instead
Yeah.
of put your name, you put echo whatever 300.
Mhm.
But at least if there is a civil action, a violation in a civil action, the citizen can actually report that agent or do a civil lawsuit if that's what they decide to do. You
What do
know,
you what do you think about the argument that they make, as far as like, well, there's extremist groups out there that are trying to find people's families and homes and all that stuff, like
I serve
doxing.
I serve as a law enforcement officer for 29 years.
Mhm.
One time I was spit on and I was bitten, and that was at the hospital. That wasn't even on the streets. There was another time that I had to also spray this lady. She was like twice my size, and I was the only officer. And I also spray her. I didn't pull for my gun. You
Mhm.
know, it's the totality of the circumstances. I do not agree. Like this thing about going knocking on houses without a warrant. When have you seen that?
I mean, I've seen it historically in other places. It didn't usually end well, but
I
yeah.
mean, I get it. If you have a if you have a federal agent undercover on the corner, you know, and they observe what appears to be an illegal immigrant, and it has to be more than reasonable suspicion, right? And they come and knock on my house, it was in plain view,
Yeah.
right? Meaning they don't need a warrant. But that's not what's happening in the United States. I actually had to go and change my driver's license with the state because there's a lot of rogue and corrupt and type A personality law enforcement that are not following the US Constitution. They're not following the federal laws, and they're not following the directives from DHS. Congress have total oversight over federal agencies. And the problem with our congresswoman is that she doesn't know, or she refuses, I don't know, to use that power and authority. Because Majorcas, how many violations Majorcas committed?
Probably not zero.
And they tried to impeach him, and that ended nowhere.
Yeah.
Congress needs to do a better job using their power and authority and their jurisdiction over federal agencies.
Well, here's the thing: if they did commit violations to that degree, so let's say they violated the Constitution, that's a crime. So,
Yes,
it's more than
but
like,
nobody gets prosecuted. I mean,
well,
look
that's
at the state level or the county level. Look at DA Montoya. They've been clearing all these backlog cases. Uh, okay, you dismiss them all. Where's the justice? What happened to the victim?
yeah,
So now you're letting the subject commit the same crime because there was no consequence.
sure,
But
yeah.
then they don't have space in the jail because they're housing illegal immigrants.
And we go full circle.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It's like a hamster wheel. It's like
yeah,
a hamster wheel.
yeah. Well, in my experience, people who don't suffer consequences don't change behaviors. So,
They don't.
yeah. Well,
Look
I
at the
mean,
jail. How many inmates have we lost in the jail? But here we have the community, complaining or against the three individuals that die in the hands of DSS or CBP.
Mhm.
What about jails? Let's clean our house first
Yeah,
before we try to clean somebody else's.
sure. So, I mean, the question. I mean, I get your critique on the. They're not presenting themselves as public officials. They're basically masked up and doing their thing in the cities. And their argument is like, oh well, it's very dangerous for us because these people are trying to find our families and all that. And your argument is like, well, the job is dangerous. I mean, like it's part of the risks which she signed up for. Um, it's fair. I mean, I get it. Um, so what about how do you feel about as far as like how they're going about um other than how they're presenting themselves, like as far as raiding Home Depots, snatching, grabbing people, raiding houses, like you think is it something that needs to be happening, or you think it should just be done differently?
I think that it should be done differently.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with Trump getting rid of Bobino and sending him back to California. That guy needs to retire. Maybe that worked back then.
Mhm,
But it's not working now.
mhm.
Whenever you have law enforcement officers murdering, right, citizens, and I get it,
Yeah,
they're protesters,
sure.
but you both were law enforcement officers, and what is just the justification of pulling a weapon on an individual that is not a threat, that is not an imminent threat to you, meaning with another firearm?
Are you talking about
I get.
the Daniel Peretti shooting?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I saw that. I don't know how many videos. Before I open my mouth about the case, I
Mhm.
look at it at every single angle that I could possibly find. You know, uh, the New York Times reached out to me, ProPublica reached out to me, you know, and it's like I tell them, I am not there. I can tell you how will I have approached the situation, right? But at the same time, you cannot speak for another agent whenever you're in the heat of the moment and you fear for your life.
Sure. Yeah.
That needs to be tackled in the court system.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with having ICE agents, walking all over Home Depot looking for illegal immigrants. Border Patrol should be working on the border because right now, yeah, the border is secure that we know of, right?
Yeah.
But you remember how many getaways we got back then? Because everybody, like we have an accident. Like I tell my dad, look at all those 20 patrol cars. Why do you need 20 patrol cars for one incident?
Sure. Yeah. That's fair. I mean, it's a good question.
I mean, I think that I think that the county and the city, they need to conduct a little bit more oversight on our police department and our sheriff's office, and give them the jurisdiction that they need. I remember before, if if a federal violation happened in front of a local county, city law enforcement officer, they would detain reasonable detainment of the individual until the federal agent will get there.
Yeah.
But like I don't know your law enforcement background in addition to border patrol, but I
Mhm.
mean I work as a cop, I work as a detention officer, I work as a deputy sheriff, and then I work as a federal agent. And even though every single training have a lot of similarities, it, there's different jurisdictions. The scope
Sure.
of your duties are different.
Sure.
And I think that that's the problem that we're having right now. It's kind of like whenever we used to have the National Guard working on the border, remember? And
Yes.
then they were shadowing the agents. What? They don't have no jurisdiction to arrest anybody.
No, no, they do not.
And if a citizen make a civil lawsuit, who pays for that? The constituents.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So
If
I
that
think
happens.
that, yeah, I think that people need to stay within their lane. You know, um, I mean, if ICE have warrants for somebody arrest, obviously, they can go to their houses and knock at their door. But you cannot just, I mean, you cannot have ICE coming around my cul-de-sac, going to every single body's house without a warrant and wanting to go inside their houses. That's in violation to the Fourth Amendment.
Sure.
Regardless if I'm regardless if I'm a conservative, Republican, whatever political party I belong to,
Yeah.
the U.S. Constitution comes first.
I mean,
If
that's
people
the
don't
law.
like it, yeah, that's the law. If people don't like it, then Congress needs to sit down at the round table and they have to amend the Constitution.
Sure.
But that takes a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not an easy thing to get people to agree on for sure.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so other than the before we wrap this up, we've been going for an hour and almost 20. So the you're running it's the website. I have it right
It's
here.
DMB.com.
DMB for El Paso. .com. And then your Dance for Dreams. We didn't talk about that. You there?
It's an organization. The state of Texas back in 2014. But because we were already doing the job, the state of Texas backtracked it to actually the federal government backtracked it to 2012. So I am very committed to our youth. I am tired of the fentanyl. I'm tired of the cocaine. I'm tired of all the drugs that kids shouldn't be using. I remember whenever I was young, I used to go dancing. My parents would wait for me outside, and they will always tell me, "Don't drink from a drink that you leave on the table. If you don't have visual, do not drink from it."
Smart.
And I believe in the kids, the children's education. Everybody should get a degree, and if they don't want a degree, they need to go. They need to get a skill set,
A trade, yeah.
a trade, because that's the way that people learn a living. So Dance for Dreams assist children between 10 and 17 that are involved in sport competitions and why sports, because whenever you play a sport, there's camaraderie.
Sure.
Between your teammates. It builds relationships. It keeps you focused. For you to have a scholarship, you need to keep your scores up. If not, you cannot get a scholarship. So the problem is that I have not been able to find a grant that feeds athleticism in our federal government, which is bizarre to me.
Yeah.
So equestrian is a sport. You have polo on a horse, you have racing, you have barrel racing, jumpers.
Mhm.
So we empower and we develop the kids through through the LLC that feeds the nonprofit because it's donor based only.
Sure.
The organization doesn't get any grants.
Okay. I wonder why there is no federal grants for that sort of thing. Like maybe they don't care.
Well, I mean, every single level of government say that they worry about our generation, our future, our kids, our teens, but I just don't see it.
No, watch what people do. Don't watch what they say.
Exactly.
Especially politicians.
Exactly. Because even playing a violin, that's a sport.
Sure.
It's not a physical sport, but it's a mental sport.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I'll continue looking for it, but in the meantime, I do events. I cover the expenses just because I have a passion for it.
Sure.
And I enjoy doing it. Like we had a birthday couple of days ago at the ranch. We have like 50 guests. We have 16 kids, actually 18 kids. 16 of them, they got 10 minutes on the horse. They play with the goats, and I love seeing kids running around. That's what I enjoy the most.
Sure. Yeah. That's more than most people would do with their lives for sure. Like it's putting your money where your mouth is. How about that?
That's right.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to throw out there? Add on?
I just, I just like to be driven by purpose. I don't like to get up in the morning and just do my prayers, drink my coffee, read the newspaper, and just sit down and watch TV all day. I think that life without purpose is wasted.
Yeah, I agree.
And I get it. Politics is not for everybody. Like I say, I mean, I never thought about running for politics. I think that I got to the end of the road, so I either go left or right. I couldn't go forward and I couldn't go backwards, so I chose my route. And I'm doing all I can to get elected with the tools and resources that I can. I work for the community. I work for the people. I do not work for the party. I represent a party. And I just hope that, we have close to 600,000 registered voters. And I know that it's non presidential elections. The majority of the people don't vote on the primaries. But if you get a mailer or you get a text from our campaign, I humbly ask you that you educate yourself on all the candidates and make your selection with a sound decision and educated. Don't just go and
Vote
don't do what I
cardinally.
did back on 2018 with our congresswomen. Let's put it that way. I learned my lesson.
All right. Well, Dolores, thanks for coming on. You're welcome back anytime. I want to know how this goes for you. Keep
Thank
us
you
in the
so
loop.
much. Thank
All
you for
right.
inviting me.
Yeah. All right.
You take
One
care.
way, episode 60.